Wildlife by Cynthia DeFelice, Chapter 2. Eric was stunned into speechlessness. His parents had said it was sudden. He'd heard them say the Army tried to give people more advance notice before they were deployed. But he'd never imagined his parents would be leaving so soon. "Wait," he said when he had recovered. "Today's Monday, right? Friday's only 4 days away." His parents looked at him with sympathy. "It's rough, I know," said Dad. "Hey," Eric said, "I can't go. Patrick and I have almost finished building the tree fort. We're going to sleep out the night after we go." He stopped suddenly, remembering something huge, something that made leaving on Friday impossible. "No," he shouted, "I can't go on Friday. I'm going hunting with Patrick this weekend, remember?" A pained expression passed over his dad's face. "I know how much you've been looking forward to that, Eric. I'm proud of how well you did in that course you took, and Patrick's dad tells me you're getting to be a pretty good shot. I'm really sorry, buddy, but there's always next year." "Next year?" exploded Eric with frustration. "Dad, I've been waiting practically my whole life for this. Mr. Holt says there are grouse all over the place, and he knows where there's a bunch of pheasants, too. This is the year, not next year, now." His parents shrugged helplessly. Eric knew there was nothing more they could say. For a while longer he asked questions, and his parents did their best to give cheery answers. But it was clear to him that they didn't know for certain what the future had in store for them, or for him, and that there was nothing he could do to change what was going to happen. Finally, his mother said tiredly, "It's late, Eric, and you have school in the morning." It was a sign of how upset she was that she didn't even ask if he had homework. Not that it mattered now, Eric thought. Upstairs he lay in his bed, hating the Army and trying to plan how he might manage to run away from home before his parents could put him on a plane to North Dakota. Like Patrick's pet gerbil Atlas when he got running on his wheel, Eric's brain kept circling round and round, going nowhere. He could hardly get his mind around the idea that he was going to have to live in North Dakota. What did seem real, horribly real, was that he wasn't going to be able to go hunting on Saturday. He'd been dreaming of it for as long as he could remember. He'd had to work hard to convince his mother to allow it. When he'd first brought up the subject, his dad had shrugged and said it was okay with him, even though he didn't have any interest in hunting birds himself. But his mother had said, "Absolutely not. You're too young to handle a gun. And why do you want to shoot some poor wild creature that's never done you any harm? It's not as if you're starving after all." Well, no, he wasn't starving, but that wasn't the point. Eric had to think hard about how to explain it so she would understand. "Sometimes," he began, "I wish it was still pioneer times. Kids really got to do things back then." His mother looked puzzled. "Like what?" "Real stuff, important stuff, stuff they needed to do to survive." His mother nodded slowly. He went on, "When Patrick and I camp out, we pretend we're living in the old days, and when we're hammering and sawing on the tree fort, we pretend we're building it for shelter and we've got to hurry because winter's coming soon. We talk about how we're going to go hunting because obviously pioneers can't go to the grocery store to get meat. We're trying to learn all about the woods and all about the animals, like back in the old days when people and animals were part of the same world, you know." He had stopped then, feeling frustrated. He had a perfectly clear idea in his head, which made total sense to him, but when he tried to talk about it, it sounded dumb. Maybe he had explained it better than he thought, because to his surprise, his mom had said she'd think about it. And that was how he had ended up taking the hunter safety course with Patrick. There, they had learned everything they might ever need to know about handling a shotgun, how to load and unload it, how to clean it, walk with it, even how to climb over a fence with it. They learned never to assume a gun is empty, never to point a gun anywhere near another person, and never to shoot unless they could see clearly and were 200% sure what they were aiming at. Patrick's dad also began taking them to his sportsman's club to shoot saucer-shaped targets called clay pigeons. The clay birds were launched from all different directions, and Eric and Patrick learned to stay alert and ready. Mr. Holt said it was good training for the field, since one never knew when a real bird might go up, or what it might do. With each trip to the range, they'd become better and better shots. When he began to hit many more targets than he missed, Eric felt great. It was about the most fun he'd ever had. Actually, hunting was going to be even more fun, and now he was going to miss out. He'd come so close. It was unbelievably unfair. Snatches of his parents' conversation drifted up the stairs, and Eric's bitter thoughts were interrupted when he heard his name. "I can't help worrying about Eric going out there," his mother had said. "You know how my father is. Ever since—" Her voice grew muffled as she walked from the living room into the kitchen, and Eric strained to hear. "And I got out of there as soon as I could and never looked back. I wish—" Her voice grew low again, and he missed what came next. "It's been a long time," his father replied. "Maybe things have changed." His mother murmured something Eric couldn't catch. Then he heard, "Nothing I did helped. Nothing I did seemed to matter at all. Looking back, I guess joining the Army Reserves was a way of trying to get his attention." She gave a rueful laugh. It didn't work, but at least, again, her voice faded out. The next thing Eric heard was his dad saying, "Well, I'm hoping Eric might feel differently about it. There's nothing he likes more than being outdoors." His mom said, "And goodness knows there's a lot of outdoors in North Dakota." After that, they started talking about what Eric would need while he was away, what he should pack, and what they would ship. Then they discussed closing up the house and making plans for Crenshaw, and Eric stopped listening. He stared at the wall, puzzling over the things he'd overheard his mother say, and wondering about the things she'd said that he hadn't been able to hear. His eyes came to rest on a sketch that hung over his dresser. His mom was attending an adult drawing class, and when he had said how much he liked one of her first pictures, she had framed it for him. In it she had sketched in pencil a flock of Canada geese in flight. The simple lines captured everything Eric loved about seeing the V-shaped formations of geese in the sky, their freedom, their grace, and the way they flew together, taking turns as the leader. Around the geese, in careful flowing calligraphy, his mother had written, "Do the geese have dreams? Do they make plans as they fly? Do you? How will you live your own wild life?" Eric hadn't really thought about the words before, but he contemplated them now. Did he have plans for his life? It seemed a cruel question. He had planned on finishing the tree fort and going hunting with Patrick. He'd planned on his life staying the way it was before he'd walked in the door and learned he was being exiled to North Nowhere. What good did it do a kid to make plans? Kids' lives didn't belong to them. Grown-ups made all the decisions, and kids just had to do what they were told. We'll see you next time for Chapter 3.